So bonjour, makate benesi Indigenous misquatas ndondem poaganazin ndonchba. My spirit name is Black Thunderbird Woman. I'm from the Turtle Clan and I'm currently a member of Red Rock Indian Band. My colonial name is Cheyenne Bartlett and I work in education and I'm also an avid gardener.
Yes. Thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you for being with us and share all your experiences during these days. We have learned a lot, not only from the mechanics of doing things, but most importantly, from the way that you are and how you share your ideas and also inspire, especially me with Rex, how things can be achieved if we are a family and together we can do things.
Yeah, so I think it goes, if I'm going to back it up quite a bit here, and it's going to be a little bit on the political side, I guess. But I do believe, if you look at the past assimilation practices of Canada and the impact of colonialism, the Indian Act, the Constitution, our way of life was severely disrupted. And we've become reliant in many ways on the government. And I think, that was a practice that was put in place to make us reliant on the current food system. I'm just gonna wait for that train to go by.
Yeah, I love that point.
And it's just because then there was laws against us gardening. Mm-hmm. There were laws, we weren't allowed to garden or harvest. And so then we got this huge disruption in our dissemination of our knowledge from generation to generation. And then the impact of residential schools and the 60 scoop, and I'm a 60 scoop survivor.
Yeah, you know about that.
Yeah, so it's like, then it's not only disrupting the food system and ways of life, but it's also disrupting being able to be a family and learn how to be in a family unit. So there's so much discourse in the communities, and we're trying to regain that. And I do think it's absolutely positive, possible and positive. But we have to realize that we can't be reliant on a system that was meant to annihilate us and regain the systems that we had before, but also understanding that, science and technology has increased our ability to be able to do things, and we can still use those, but we don't need to be reliant on the system anymore.
And how we can support together in order to overcome that. Obviously, in order to overcome and not to do a quick fix, we have to go to the root causes of this.
Yeah,
this is painful.
It is painful, and the root cause is, in my opinion, colonialism and assimilation practices. But we're still here, and there are still some of us who have that knowledge or who have been, gifted with that knowledge from somebody, from our elders. And I feel privileged to be able to say, I know what I know, but I have a lot to learn. But I'm going to share what I do know and then learn from the other person that knows. And I think when we pull the people, this person knows a bit of this one knows this one knows this one knows this. And when we start to pool our knowledges together, then we can start filling in the gaps. And I kind of see we're like a puzzle that was torn apart, and we're trying to find all the pieces. And there are going to be pieces that are gone. But hopefully we can put the puzzle together enough that we could at least figure out where those missing pieces or what those missing pieces were. But that's going to take time and community. Yeah. And, I love that you guys are here too, because it's, as you said, this practice of assimilation and colonialism isn't just here on Turtle Island, AKA Canada, but around the globe, right? And so when we have all these Indigenous communities coming together and take the power back, basically, I do truly believe it's going to be a lot of work. And now we're not just, fighting to get our ancient knowledges back, but we're also fighting a very quickly deteriorating environment.
And I see this intergenerational trauma very evident in the communities. We can say, oh no, people who don't know, no? And they will say, oh yeah, it happened 100 years ago, why we are still...
It is, and yes, maybe it was 100 years ago, but it went on for how many years? So a lot of the people that went through these systems of assimilation are still alive.
Yes.
So yeah, it started 100 years ago, and many of them have died and passed on, but I'm still alive.
Yes.
And
And you suffered it.
And I was part of the 60s
Yes,
scoop. You know, I was
yeah.
6 years old, and Children's Aid came and just took us, and that was it. You know, a lot. The word trust has come up a lot. I've heard it come up a few times while you guys were here, and you know, it really makes me think. You know, how do you learn? How do you build a relationship without trust? You can't. And so you do have to build that trust. And there's also, that's not just between people, there's also that trust with the land. I can't build that relationship until I trust the land is going to give me what it needs. And the land trusts me that I'm not just going to harm it.
Abuse, no?
Yeah. And then even like in communities, because our communities have been so disrupted and so damaged, a lot of us don't even trust each other. So if we can't build that trust within our own communities, how are we expected to build that trust and relationship with people outside of the community, and like other deeper relationships that again extend into the land and into the water and into the air? You know, and like one of the elders taught me that, you know, we're in that seventh fire, and we're going to come to this crux in the road during this fire, this prophecy, where we're going to have a choice of, as a human race, to choose technology or to go back to our roots and rebuild that relationship to land. And if we choose the technology route, it's going to be pretty devastating all the way around. But when we stop and rebuild that relationship with land, and go back to, you know, our ancestral roots, and I don't mean like get rid of all the houses and barbecues and stuff, but be more cognizant about how we're using resources, then we could, you know, have potential for a much better future. And you see that all over the place, right? So we're in that time now, and I think like that's why I work so hard with my kid. You know, like that's my job, to teach him how to respect me, to respect his dad, to respect his friends, his teachers, other people that he meets, to respect that land. And so yes, his little hot sauce business, one thing you wouldn't see and you wouldn't know is he goes in every second day and talks to each of his pepper plants. He asks them how they are. He tells them he loves them. He caresses them. Like he truly is trying to build a relationship with those pepper plants. So it's like from the outside world, it's just this kid who's growing peppers and making hot sauce. But for me, it's way more than that. It's like being able to build that trust and that respect with that plant.
Yeah.
And with me and with everyone around him.
Yeah, but what I see and is when you give love, no, to your children, you show, well, your truly self, no, because it has to be like that in families, and he, in some ways, he has learned to build. Maybe it is natural for him to build relationships with you, but also position himself, no, position and see, no, what is about him, maybe unconsciously, and what the world is for him. And now he's establishing the relationships, not only, as you say, with people, but with the land, with the plants, because he values that they are also subjects, they are life, no, instead of objects.
That's like in Anishinaabe, so in our language too, like we don't, you know, in English we say that tree over there, it's an it, like it's an object. But in our language, it's a he or a she, right? It is not an it. It is, and the teaching behind that is like, you know, when we die, our spirit goes to wherever it is you believe your spirit goes, if you believe that you have a spirit, but our body goes back to the land, and that, you know, we turn back to the land, and the land feeds everything around. So we literally, when we say the trees and the animals are our brothers and sisters, like literally, because, you know, we share our flesh with them, and then they share their flesh with us. So we are intertwined in that way. So no, it isn't an it, because it'd be like me calling you an it, because we used to be part of that tree at some point. We've eaten the food that were living things, right? And become part of us. So it's that kind of circle of life. But yeah, no, it's not it's that reciprocity, that love for life, that understanding that life is just as important as my life, because without that tree and all the other trees, we wouldn't be here. For here, well, I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in the communities too, as well. And that's like a whole other layer that needs to be examined and brought forward. And again, that goes back to like the assimilation process. But I think with every big adventure, you have to start with one step, right? Like everything. So it's that small, like what can we do right now? So we're not going to be able to do everything.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning and start small. You know, like I don't expect my son when he was born to use a fork and knife right away, right? It took some time for him to be able to use a spoon, let alone a fork, and just starting to use a knife, and that's 9 years later. But and I think that's going to be the same here. And that's what I tell anybody who wants to start a garden. Let's just strip it right back. And I'm like, don't grow 50 things. Tell me 3 things that you really want to grow. 3 things that you're really passionate about growing. And then let's see like the symbiotic relationships, if there are any, between those 3, or if there's things that are not compatible. Because like in all life, there are things that are not compatible. And so, you know, we plant them according to their relationships with each other. There's that relationship thing again, right? And so I know that I'm not going to plant the onions right next to the potatoes, because they're not going to agree with each other in that growing space. And then we got some other beautiful symbiotic relationships, like your Three Sisters garden, right? Where they're meant to grow together and they support and like flourish together. But yeah, so going back on the case of pick the 3 things and let's learn about those 3 things. What do they like? What does their soil like? What are their needs? What do they not like? Out of those 3 things, who's best to plant beside each other? And then next year, try a 4th or a 5th one, and then a 6th, 7th, and then like grow by 2 every year. And you know, you learn, because it's not just here, let's throw some seeds in and see what happens. You know, like you have to understand that plant. You have to understand what he or she needs, right?
Yeah.
So,
And what I like is talking to the plants, no?
yeah.
Talking to the plants and saying, okay, beautiful, how you are today. And it is also what we do in Latin America or in Peru, no? We talk to our plants, we go to the fields, and yeah, it seems that they are better, no? And they behave better. And it is the same with people.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Being empathetic, no? Listening and not talking all the time, no? And understanding that person, yeah, as much possible you can, in order to, yeah, to see the reality, which is impossible most of the time, but through the learning processes that you are involved. Do you think that we can not only motivate but help people work on their mental models, no? And influence these mental models with some activities that we have, especially children, because they are starting, they are molding, no?
Yeah.
For adulthood.
I believe that we do have opportunity. I do think that we do need to start at the school level, which I struggle with, because it, you know, we think about residential schools, the school did a lot of harm, but here's that opportunity for schools to do better and contribute to that reconciliation process. And yes, it might just be gardening to somebody, but to others, it's like, it's a whole other, it means something different. So if we can get the youth involved and build that capacity little by little, and it just becomes part of their life, part of just something that they do, you know, like my kid, for example, like he's been in it, like when he was born, I remember his birthday's on Monday, actually.
Oh.
So he's born in the middle of October, and I was still taking my garden down. So when I got home from the hospital, I had him in a little carrier. So in his first few weeks of life, he's out there with me as I'm like taking stuff out of the garden. I'm wearing him. And then in the springtime, you know, he's sitting in the garden, in the dirt, putting dirt in his mouth as I'm planting, right? You know, he's never been isolated from the work. And he's been part of the harvests. And it's like, yeah, you can absolutely go pull a carrot and eat the carrots. Go pull some beans and like, I don't stop that. And if it's dirty, who cares? Put the dirt in your mouth. Like, I know what's in my soil, and I know it's not going to hurt him. And what pains me is when you see kids, and like this one story, this girl, this young teenage girl, I was pulling potatoes out of the garden, and I said, I'm going to make French fries. And she's just like, out of those? I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I don't want those French fries. And I'm like, well, she's like, I want the ones from the store. And I'm like, well, where do you think they come from? She had no idea that they came from potatoes. And she was mortified, like absolutely mortified that the potatoes grew in the dirt. And I was just like, oh my goodness. We are so disconnected just from our food, let alone the rest of the environment and everything else it has to offer us. Like, these kids don't even understand that their food comes from the ground. Like, it's just from a store, right? And so that hurt me. Not me, but it hurt because it's just like we failed our children.
What is the consequence to this?
Well, the immediate consequences, I would say, are health. The physical health to the person itself, and then it ripples from there, right, to the point where people are absolutely disconnected to the world around them outside of the buildings that they're in and the people that they're talking to. You know, like, how many times people just like see a spider and just kill it because it's there, and I'm like, why'd you kill the spider? Like, it wasn't hurting you. Like, bring it outside. Or when they kill bugs that are outside, just like, there's really no reason to, but we're just so unconnected from life in general. And I do believe it's because we're so involved in technology that we're missing out. And that makes me sometimes, makes me think that we're not evolving, but we're de-evolving, because we're so dependent on things that we don't need all that other.
That is true. People are more time inside the houses. No, children are with their games, no, and they compete how many hours they are going to be awake playing these games, and without thinking about the consequences and what will be life in 20 years, in 30 years, if we have this type of people who are not connected to nature, to Mother Earth, no, and to people. It is not socialization anymore.
No. So, and that'll, like, not that I believe this would, and I know, like, this would almost have zero chance of happening, small possibility, but like hypothetically, if an EMP came and just wiped out all technology, which could happen, but it's extremely not going to happen. Yeah. But my point is what would people do?
If people don't reflect on that.
No.
Yeah, we are misusing the resources, the food resources that we have. No.
Yeah.
And it is, as you say, because of the deconnection. Yeah, dependency and deconnection that we have. Yeah. But thank you, Cheyenne. Thank you so much, and continue talking to her if you have something to do. But also, she must be tired.